basically what I had intended to show you is the process kind of from start to finish as a device onboards to the network, signs up for an account, and then their policy changes as different things happen on the network. So when you first connect, you get put into an IP group, and that IP group has a precedence value. All of the groups in the RxG have a precedence value. And that's very important because at any given time, a device is likely falls into various different groups. So in addition to just being part of an IP group, you may be part of a MAC group, you might be part of an account group, any of those things. And at any given time, multiple different groups may be applicable to your device, but only one of those can actually be active at a time. And the way that that is identified is via the precedence. So you can see that we've got the default value for a IP group has a precedence of 2, which means it's a low precedence group that once you become a member of some other group that has a higher precedence value, the policy of the new group takes effect for your device. So in the beginning, you're just a member of the IP group, precedence is 2, and you fall into that pre-authentication policy. That policy has a splash portal, and again, that just takes you to the web page that allows you to log in, sign up for an account, and in this case, the demo is supposed to be purchasing that basic usage plan, which is a free plan, which comes with a kind of low tier service. So you have the ability to create different experiences that the user can choose between by deciding if they want to pay for a plan or not, or choose from several different plans. In this case, we would just sign up for a basic plan, which a account group by default has a precedence value of 4. So basically an IP group is 2, a MAC group is 3, an account group is 4. You have the ability to change those based on your needs. But once you have an account that has a login session, the account group for that particular account, now that group's policy takes effect for the user. So in this case, you would be part of the basic user's account group, and that can have whatever types of enforcement you decide you want to put in place. Maybe you've got content filtering on your free plan, or maybe you've just got low speed, they're limited to 5 megs, and that's it. Any of the pieces of our policy enforcement that you want, we have the ability to go in and manipulate the user's experience based on that. One of the things that we can do is apply a quota to those users. So there are various different ways that you can control that on the network. There's the ability to do an event trigger quota. There's also the ability to just set various quota levels on the usage plan. When you're deploying with an event trigger, you have the ability to say we want to allow the user to use a certain amount of bandwidth within a rolling window of time. So let's say we want, if we want the person to be cut off after they've used 1 gigabyte of traffic within 2 hours, say, then we can shift their policy once that trigger is hit. So in this case, we would have a 1 gig per hour quota trigger, and then once the user has gone past that within any 1 hour period of time, then the transient group that's attached to that then becomes active for those users. So we have a data-hungry account group, and the trigger for the quota is linked to this data-hungry account group. And when that trigger happens, the user temporarily becomes a part of this new policy. And you can see that we've set the precedence value on this to 5, which again is very important because the precedence controls which policy is actually active for the device. If you have a situation where you've got 2 devices in the same precedence, then you start to have unpredictable behavior. So you want to make sure that you have your precedence values set such that you have the ability to target a particular policy to a device without any confusion there. So for our data hungry policy, we can say slow the user's traffic down. Maybe we want to just give them 1 megabit per second. We also have the ability to do things like bring them to a web page that allows them to update and purchase a faster plan. So, yes.
Sorry, isn't any way just to detect if that user are doing the streaming? If the guys are doing the streaming, is going to direct to the portal to upgrade the plan?
You mean like a particular type of streaming traffic? Or?
Yes, maybe Netflix, YouTube, something forced to purchase the service.
You could, yeah. You can set up there's a packet inspection engine where you can target any particular type of traffic, so that depending on exactly what you're trying to target, that changes. If there's an easy way to target a particular IP group, IP range of things that they're connected to, we can target that traffic that way. Particular ports and particular types of traffic. The ability to look and do deep packet inspection on that traffic and be able to create those triggers that will change the person's policy based on traffic that we've observed. So that's just a different type of trigger in addition to the quota. So there's several different types of triggers that you can set up, but you do have the ability to create deep packet inspection rules. Yes.
So in order to, this policy example you just went through, you're monitoring bandwidth for a particular user. Are you going to go into places where you need to put the RGNETS platform in order to see all users' traffic in order to have these policies execute, or is there other options like redirection of traffic towards RGNETS? Or?
So the way that the RxG is typically deployed is it's the gateway device between all of your LAN devices and the internet. So all of the traffic flows through the RxG, and it's in line so that obviously there are, you could have traffic going through something else, but in order to do all of this enforcement, that happens by the traffic flowing through the system. And it creates and modifies firewall rules and different components of the system that control that experience. But that traffic has to flow through the RxG for that to happen.
Correct.
I have one question.
Yes.
Can you determine the traffic, whether it's cached or coming from the outside, to determine quotas and things like that?
With like the caching system within the
Yeah,
RxG.
will that count against the customer?
The
Versus traffic, cached or not?
The quota is going to apply, I believe, regardless of whether that's coming from the cache or not.
Well, would that depend on where the content cache distribution server is located? I mean, for instance, if it's internal on your network.
Yeah,
then,
so you can communicate with other devices on the LAN side of the RxG
right.
without it taking away from the quota.
Right.
So if you're hitting, just another server that's on the network somewhere, you could do that.
You could potentially do it with another caching service.
Yeah, Simon, can you answer that? The traffic that's coming from the web cache, does that count towards the user's quota?
I believe it does. Because the way the web cache works is that's inside our system, right? Now, the PF mechanism that queues sits on the egress of both directions, egress down, egress up. So when you're pulling from the web cache, that needs to egress down towards you. And since that's where the instrumentation occurs, that will,
Triggers quotas.
yeah, and also that's how you get traffic shaping on that as well. because that is pulling through that egress point, which is filtered.
So if you have a Netflix or a Google cache interior to your network, it would not count against you, or it would?
If it was on the interior, that would be, we're typically, as we are on your network, deployed at the border, right? So because we're at the border there, you're talking about putting something here, it would not.
Okay.
Not unless you did additional integration.
Okay.
If you guys are at a good starting point, it's probably time for a nice little break. You've been here for a while on that stuff.
Yeah, actually, we'll just run through the rest of this real quick. It'll take 2 minutes when we do this. So basically, as I mentioned before, we can take the user to a different portal page, allow them to purchase a different plan, kind of upsell and create some revenue that way. And then once they buy that plan, they obviously get put into the account group for that new plan. Once that happens, that policy then takes effect for the user. We get rid of those, the interstitial redirection. We can give them a higher bandwidth queue, that sort of thing. Any piece of enforcement that you want to remove or add, you can do that. Just the big thing that I want to point out with that is the fact that the precedence really controls the experience, and the policies are not cascading. Right? So you don't have 2 policies with different enforcement pieces, and both of those are going to affect the user at once. Basically, at any given time, we get a device into one group, one highest precedence group, and that policy is the one that's going to take effect.
Can you change the IP groups through a policy? Because I would love to be able to sell, like, we're total private IPs, but we sell public to our customers manually. Would I be able to automate that through the ARC?
So one piece that you can do through the usage plan is the concept of binaries. So you can set up a plan. Yes, you can change that based on what happens on the network. So
Yeah.
one of the things that you can do is when you have different pools of VLANs, and based on the account group that you're in, if you move into a policy where your radius realm now needs to shift that user to a different VLAN, you can do that. You can have them be disconnected from the network and then automatically reconnect and then get put into a new VLAN. But there's also a concept as part of our VRG, Virtual Residential Gateway concept, which allows the person to sign up for a usage plan that gives them access to a public IP address and have that happen in an automated way. So that user can then, we're going to go through some of that stuff tomorrow, because that's one of kind of the new things for this year that's that we want to highlight a little bit. But basically allowing the user to sign up for a plan that gives them access to a particular public IP address, and then allows the user through the portal to do things like set up a DMZ, do port forwarding, stuff like that. So, it's all in this.
See you tomorrow, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so with that, let's take a little break.